Hey, welcome back to School Universe. It's Sue. I know I promised last week I would talk about emotional eating and food addiction, but come on, it's Christmas. The intervention can wait. Instead, I've decided to blow your mind with developmental bioelectricity. 什么是 developmental bioelectricity? 有没有看过骇客任务？里面的人类是不是被拿来当电池用？这个就是生物电性 bioelectricity。那 developmental 就是发展的意思，所以 developmental bioelectricity 就是发展生物电学。那早在70年代，生物电性其实就启发很多科学家的想象力。那其中有一个叫做 Robert Becker 的骨科医生，就利用简陋的设备观察受创的 salamander 火蜥在进行再生修复时，细胞产生的电力模式。那当时 Dr. Becker 他就想，如果我破解其中的奥妙，或许就能帮助断手断脚的人长出新的四肢来。Fast forward to the year 1986, a teenage boy happened to find Becker's book, The Body Electric, in a bookstore in Vancouver. No one knew at the time, but this boy would eventually go on to realize Becker's fantasy. This boy was Dr. Michael Levin. He caught the attention of mainstream media when he and his team at Tufts University successfully regrew the severed limbs of these frogs they treated with a special solution that impacts the voltage gradient of their injured cells, thereby discouraging scarring and encouraging regeneration. I know some of you are probably asking how the frogs lost their legs in the first place. All I can say is researchers typically aren't squeamish about playing God. 有一个访问麦克博士的问他 I think the host was trying to bait him.And he asked, 你觉得参与实验青蛙有什么感想？像是先被砍腿，然后居然又长回来，他们会觉得自己经历这些磨难之后成了神蛙之类的。那麦克博士当下回答其实很哲学也很官方，他说他不肯去猜测青蛙的内心世界，就像他无法猜测主持人的内心世界。那其实生物研究的确是有它的丑陋面，但是麦克博士的研究真的让很多人，包括我在内，都觉得他之后应该会得诺贝尔奖。那我在这边有提供他演讲的连结，有兴趣的朋友可以听听看。我在这边就会直接讲那个演讲的重点。So I think the most important point of the entire talk is that genetics doesn't specify hardware rearrangement. It specifies a system that executes a highly flexible program that can reorganize unexpected states and take corrective actions. 意思是基因并不能主导因体的呈现，它只是提供一个系统，然后运用具有高弹性的程式，然后在过程出错的时候提供修正。但是麦克博士的其中一个实验其实就是纠正蝌蚪的胚胎缺陷。那实验中的蝌蚪因为尼古丁造成大脑无法正常发展，但是透过癫痫药物调整细胞电压后，整体大脑细胞直接恢复正常发展和运作，所以尼古丁只是一个 bug in the system。 那透过骇客细胞的玷污性，硬体就能恢复正常的呈现。This study has to do with embryogenesis. It's well established that nicotine decreases fetus brain volume. To reverse the side effect, the team administered an anti-epileptic drug to upregulate HCN2 ion channel to manipulate the cell voltage. As a result, they were able to repair the morphological defects of the tadpoles, normalize their gene expression, and the frogs were later on shown to have normal brain function. 所以他们纯粹是透过影响细胞电压就能够控制基因程式，让实验蝌蚪长大后变成 IQ 正常的青蛙。那青蛙的 IQ 到底要怎么测，其实我也不知道，这也是我崇拜像麦克博士这样的研究员的原因。为了证明自己的理论，要发挥比任何艺术家都要强大的想象力和创意，而医学和科技的进步就是要靠他们这样的人默默的在努力推动。Another impressive study conducted by Dr. Levin has to do with cancer therapy. This time they inserted oncogene into the tadpoles. After they did this, the tadpoles developed tumors, but long before that, the contaminated cells actually shut themselves off from their neighbors bioelectrically. The next part is even more fascinating. If they inserted the oncogene together with RNA encoding a particular ion channel, forcing the cells to stay connected to the global cell network, even when the oncoprotein was highly expressed, no tumor was formed. 那麦克博士的另一个实验就是在蝌蚪的身体里注射致癌基因，如果你不理它的话，被污染的细胞就会产生独立的静态电位 resting potential 和整体系统划清界限，那最后发展成肿瘤。但是如果他们额外注射编码离子通道 ion channel 的 RNA， 那污染细胞就会持续和整体系统连接在同一个网络，然后维持同样的电压，最后也不会发展成肿瘤。I know, right? I told you, it's groundbreaking stuff. I really love how Dr. Levin keeps emphasizing the point that sometimes you don't have to mess with the hardware to solve what is ultimately a software issue. And bioelectricity can be a great tool for fixing these bugs in our programming. 所以其实我们的身体真的有它的智慧，而且我们可以透过生物电学唤醒这个智慧，就是麦克博士想要和我们分享的。这真的不是什么边缘科学 This isn't fringe science. His work has made it into textbooks and scientific journals, so personally, I can't wait for his next breakthrough. 那 Scott 这个礼拜不聊币圈 He's been a soccer fan for as long as I've known him, and the World Cup just ended, and he's got something to say about it.This
past week, the 2022 FIFA World Cup concluded in Qatar. The event, which takes place every 4 years, is the most watched sporting event in the world. FIFA is the name of the organization that oversees world football, or soccer depending on where you are in the world. Its name, FIFA, is an acronym, a word in which the first letter of each word in a longer name or phrase creates a new pronounceable word. The language of FIFA's full official name is French,but in English, it is translated to the International Association Football Federation. Host countries for World Cups are selected a decade or more in advance, and 12 years ago, when Qatar was chosen as host for the 2022 edition of the tournament, there was a lot of controversy. There were rumors of corruption and bribery. Critics were quick to point out Qatar's less-than-stellar human rights record. Minorities, women, and migrant workers all face daily risks and discrimination in the country.Also, the extreme heat in Qatar during the summer months when the World Cup is traditionally held meant that for the first time the tournament would instead be held during the winter. This was controversial because it would interfere with major professional soccer leagues happening across the world. This would force unprecedented mid-season breaks. Finally, the small Middle Eastern nation of Qatar was a country with no footballing history or pedigree. In fact, the stadiums in which the games would be played had to be built from scratch.Then, in the months leading up to the event, strict policies such as no alcohol sales at the games further worried visiting fans. But at last, despite the controversies, the tournament took place. The defending champions, who won the 2018 edition of the World Cup tournament, were France, and entering this year's tournament, they were again among the favorites. Legendary players like Lionel Messi from Argentina and Cristiano Ronaldo of Portugal were looking for their first World Cup victories,in what would be the last World Cup for both. The tournament saw some amazing upsets, such as Saudi Arabia scoring a historic win in their game against Messi in Argentina. Morocco made history by advancing further through the tournament than any other African team previously had, ultimately reaching the semifinals. They finished in 4th place after losing to Croatia in their final game. Eventually, the tournament came down to Argentina, who recovered from their shock loss to Saudi Arabia to reach the finals,and France, the defending champions. The final was a sensational game of football, which saw the score tied 3-3, even after extra time. A penalty shootout was necessary to decide the winner, and in the end, Argentina triumphed. Fans around the world were elated to see the legend Lionel Messi win a World Cup at last. For many people, this cements the Argentine as the greatest player to ever play the game.
这些四足在 Qatar 举办也是非常具有争议性的 There was a lot of controversy 这个单词我们上周有用到争议有哪些呢？你听懂多少？总共有4个。第一个争议 The critics were quick to point out Qatar's less than stellar human rights record. Less than stellar 就是有5点的，所以 Qatar 它在人权方面是有5点的。第二个原因 Extreme heat in the summer夏天的天气真的太热了，所以最后世足必须在冬天举办，这也影响了其他足球赛的行程。那第三个 No footballing history or pedigree. Pedigree 是血统族谱的意思，在这个 context 就是说 Qatar 根本就没有很厉害的足球历史或队伍，他们凭什么办世足？最后一个是 No alcohol sales 不能贩卖酒精，像我们球迷一般就是喜欢一边喝酒一边看球赛，所以不能贩卖酒精这件事情也是一开始是非常让人非常不开心。但尽管 这些原因，世界杯还是在 Qatar 举行，结局也令人满意。阿根廷拔得头筹 ，Lionel Messi 梅西在卡达世界杯画下完美的句点。That's all we have for you today. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas, and we'll catch you next week.